All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Shamarko Noble, and we are here on Are You Serious? Poor People's Armies presents Are You Serious? Which probably really applies today now that I think about it. Are you serious? Today's guest is Khalilah V. Collins, my good friend Khalilah. Khalilah V. Collins is the mother of two, a social worker, community organizer, activist, and DJ. I don't know why she leaves that out of her bio every time. And social justice practitioner. She earned her master's in social work from Spalding University in Louisville, Kentucky. She understands the importance of grassroots organizing and the need to couple that with policy change. So much so that she ran for public office in 2014. In 2016, she left Louisville. Louisville. Am I saying that right? Louisville?
Louisville.
Louisville.
It's Louisville.
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 Louisville. I got people get on me on that all the time. To follow her heart to New Orleans was the director of Making Connections, NOLA, which focused on creating community level strategies to enhance the mental health and well being of African American men and boys in New Orleans. Welcome to the show, Khalilah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm
Ah, we're
excited.
glad to have you. We're glad to have you. So,
Oh no, what happened?
there we go. Can you hear me? Check, check. Can you hear me? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Can you hear me? There we go. Are you talking? Can I hear you?
Okay. Can you hear
Hello?
me now?
There we go.
Yes.
There we go. Wow, technical that's crazy. My internet literally shut off. It shut off. Just so you know, that has literally never happened. It's real. All right. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
But I think one thing that we left out of that is that over the past 2.5 years or 2 years, I've been back and forth between New Orleans and Louisville, supporting on the ground activists and organizers
Mm,
around the fight for justice for Breonna Taylor and all of those who've experienced police brutality, police violence. And so my current job now is working on a alternative to policing a project in Louisville. So we are looking at how we can send out other types of responders if someone calls 911 other than police. So that's the piece that we left out of the that brings us up to
oh,
date.
okay. Well, we probably will revisit that a little bit later. So,
Okay.
folks, we have basically uh, cut this interview into three different sections. We're going to talk a little bit about the past, a little bit about the present, and a little bit about the future. So let's hop right into it. First question: tell us how you became political. When did you get involved with movement work, and would you consider yourself a revolutionary?
So the sheer fact of being born a Black woman in the US makes me political. Whether I choose to act that out or not, um, that's that's makes me political. When I began to actually live in that and work through that was after I got out of the military in 1999, and so that's how I came to begin to understand um, the number of systems, the number of things that were in place that were at the time I was like, these are unfair things, right? These are things that don't make any sense. And um why if I, you know, served my country, or why if I have, you know, came out of high school without, you know, being locked up or going to jail or whatever, that I can't find a job, and why am I homeless, right? And so those are the questions that I began to ask myself and started looking for answers.
Yeah,
So that's how how I became to work and move in my political being. And then what was the third question you asked me?
yeah. Would you consider yourself a revolutionary?
Yeah, to a certain degree. And
Yeah,
I say to a certain degree because, to be completely transparent and honest, I know that revolution is the only way to achieve what we need to achieve in this country.
hmm,
However, I have to be honest and say it scares the shit out of me. I'm sorry, is that can I do that?
yeah. No, you can cuss. Yeah,
Oh,
cuss up a
you can
storm.
cuss on my show, that's why
I don't give
um,
a fuck.
yeah. No, but it scares me, right? Because
Yeah,
what we know is that people have to die, blood has to be shed, right?
yeah,
And so that part scares me. What also scares me is that we are so entrenched in this system that if we were to burn it all down and start over, would we just recreate what we are used to and what we know? And would it make a difference? And so that scares me. I think about, I mean, that's what happened in the countries at this country's inception, right? People left one place to build a new world, and then mimicked the same things that they were fleeing from, and actually made it worse, right? So that
yeah.
scares me. I have a friend of mine that we joke about, when the revolution comes, like, what is our role going to be, right? I don't know how to grow food. I don't know how to, you know, slaughter animals or whatever is going to be needed to survive. And so her and I joke that I'm a teacher. I can't even have babies anymore, so I can't even help to repopulate, right? And so our joke is that we're going to be the quality control of the new world, right? We're going to be the ones to say, "Up, nope, that looks like capitalism. Up, nope, it looks like racism. We're not doing that. Nope, this looks like we're not doing that." So our joke is we're going to be the quality assurance in the new world because we don't have any other skills.
Well, so you said a lot of really interesting things here. This is how I know. This is how I know we're not going to actually make it through all the questions. So, so the first thing you said that was really interesting to me. Um, I'm sure a lot of people know this to talk about this, but there's a couple of theories out there about what really motivated the civil rights movement, and one of those theories is veterans returning from World War II, right? Veterans who returned from World War II and who had fought for this country and were like, I'm not gonna be a second class citizen. I'm gonna put my life on the line, watch my brothers and sisters die, get blown up by mortar shells and ripped apart by bullets, and then come back and just be treated like this. And so, I find your story sort of interesting in that spirit. And then, so your last point, I know a lot of people don't like to think about this, but it's very likely that the revolution and what happens afterwards will require middle management. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like all of a sudden we don't require administration. You know what I mean? And basic human services. Customer service is a part of the revolution too. Anyway, so but it's real. I mean, I'm just being real. We might use
That's
different.
skill. I can't
Yeah,
do anything else.
I'm sure you can. But all right. So next question: when did you first connect with the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, and why were you attracted to the work of the organization, or were you even? I mean, I made an assumption in that question. So
No,
yeah.
yeah. I don't remember the exact year. Um, I'm gonna say around 2002 or three. I was already working with an anti-poverty human rights organization in Louisville called Women in Transition. Which I know it's one of your questions, so I just make it all one big answer. Is that okay?
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So
Save
working
your
with
time. It's that
yeah.
efficient middle management thinking right there.
See, that's my skill.
Yeah.
So working with Women in Transition, where we did anti-poverty organizing, trying to gain access to things like healthcare, livable wages, affordable housing, adequate and affordable housing, and different things like that. Somehow we linked up. I believe, if I can remember correctly, PPERC was on a tour bus tour, and they came through Louisville, and we linked up with them then. Their mission very closely aligned with ours, and I say WIT was a human rights organization. However, we didn't have human rights language until we hooked up with PPERC, right? So we have been saying we want affordable housing, we want livable wages, we want access to education and healthcare and different things like that, but we didn't have the language of human rights. And so what PPERC did for WIT was gave them that language, and also ultimately allowed us to have a larger, broader conversation, and link our struggles or our organizing efforts with other organizing efforts across the city and across the country. I guess across the world as well.
Got it. Um, again, that's interesting because I was actually just talking to somebody about this. How important do you think the human rights framework is? Because I feel like especially when it comes to what we refer to as the nonprofit industrial complex, it's missing a lot. And it can lead one to sort of wonder. I mean, I feel like it's absolutely critical, right? Like I feel like it's the end point. So we're talking about revolution. We're talking about revolution for human rights. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, in your experience, have you grown to feel like it's actually more important or less important at this stage? I know we didn't plan this question, but you brought it up.
No. So for me, especially early on, the human rights framework gave me a teaching tool, right?
Right.
It's hard to have conversations with people about capitalism with people who are totally bought into capitalism, right?
Hmm.
And just who are believe in bootstraps, get work hard, you'll get what you need or whatever. And so the human rights framework allowed me to have to talk to people at a different level and say, like, so that there are these actual things as humans we're entitled to, and our government's responsible to provide those things. And not only does the US not do that, but it helped create those rules and goes and enforces those rules across the world and doesn't do it in our own country, right? And so for me, it was a way to help educate people and bring people to the conversation who otherwise wouldn't be part of the conversation. I think that for me, it's basic human needs stuff, and it's going to always be important until we have those things. I don't necessarily talk about it a whole lot like I used to, but I definitely, I mean, I have, like, right here in front of me, I have it right here. Like, I keep my little Declaration of Human Rights at my fingertips all the time, because it is just basic access to things that will allow people to have a healthy, happy life. And again,
Right.
it allowed me to understand that our struggles are linked to one another, right? So that Declaration of Human Rights not only discusses economic human rights, it discusses social rights and cultural rights and political rights. And so we were able to link with the Fairness Campaign in Louisville, who does
That's
LGBTQ
right.
work, right? We were
Yeah.
able to link with um, who were doing environmental justice work, right? You know, because those things are part of our rights. You have rights to clean water, you have rights to clean air, right? All of those different things. And so this little organization was working on, affordable housing, was able to link with people who were doing LGBTQ work, people who were doing environmental justice work, people who were doing union organizing work, all of those different things because of that framework.
Wow. I have to include that question the next time I write the interviews. Miss Khalilah, hold on one second. My computer is about to die, and I don't want to lose you again. Hold up, hold up,
All
hold up,
right.
hold up. All right. Share my. All right. We are powered up. Okay, so let's get to the present. So you are currently in New Orleans.
Mhm.
What work are you currently doing in that area? And what would you say sort of the key on the ground poverty based issues are there? Or maybe human rights based issues would be the better question.
So again, full transparency, I am in New Orleans, but I'm not doing any on the ground work right now.
Okay,
The
feel that.
pandemic, yeah, the pandemic, I lost my job, or as the pandemic was ramping up. And then also as the uprisings were happening across the country, I was spending more time in Louisville doing that. So not I am not as plugged into what's going on in New Orleans as I was 2 years ago.
Hmm.
I will say that New Orleans has um, has a lot of issues, right? When I moved here 6 years ago, actually today is my no, not today. Okay, I'm almost at my 6 year anniversary. But when I moved here, New Orleans had a 51% Black male unemployment rate in the city.
Okay.
Louisiana was, and a few years ago, the incarceration capital of the world. I think Oklahoma or Idaho or somewhere is number one now, but New Orleans is still running close in that race, with Kentucky following right behind it.
Hmm.
Um, so high incarceration numbers, low employment numbers, Um, and when you have people who are not able to access employment and money and resources, then of course you have the issues of crime, right? And so we're seeing the crime here is, I don't want to use the word astronomical because I just feel like I'm gaslighting people, but the crime is high, right? We're seeing a surge in carjackings, not only carjackings, but like violent carjackings. We're seeing, you know, the typical things that you see when people have high poverty rates and low access to resources. So, I mean, the issues are definitely there. Um, the main industry in this city is hospitality, and we know we don't like to pay our servers, right? We don't want to pay them livable wages, and they don't necessarily have access to health care, let alone mental health care or different things like that. So it's like this compound problem that we're seeing here. But unfortunately, I am not as engaged on the ground as I was a few years ago.
Yeah, I feel that. Um, uh, all right. Next question. So you've been deeply involved in the Breonna Taylor work in Louisville,
Louisville, Louisville,
Louisville, Louisville.
Louisville. Two syllables. Louisville.
It sounds it's spelled Ville though. Anyway,
VUL. VUL.
Louisville.
LOOHVUL.
I get it. What lessons have you taken away from that work that you think the movement can or should absorb, if any?
So many. Um, so I did give a date 2002, 2003, but I left the military in 99 and started doing this work in small capacities, and then it ramped up over the years. So for 20 years, I've been doing this work, right?
Yeah.
Around that time. Um, I just recently wrote my personal statement for grad school. I didn't tell you that either.
You did
I
not.
applied. Yeah, I applied for grad school. But,
Congratulations.
yeah, we'll talk about it when we'll.
Yeah. All right. You're not in yet. I got it. But still, congratulations.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But in writing my personal statement, and over the last year or so, what I understood is I've never been more clear on what my goal is. Even when I was doing anti-poverty organizing, even as the Black Lives Matter movement was happening and we were going to Ferguson, to support organizers there, I have never been more clear until the uprisings came to my city and I saw what I saw in Louisville, but across the world. I had never been more clear on my goal and what my role is. And we'll get into this in a few minutes, but that's a little bit, less clear today. But like my goal is liberation, right? My goal at first was access to affordable housing. My goal at first was having the police to stop killing us, right? But my goal after being on the streets for hundreds of days in Louisville, my goal is liberation, collective liberation for my people, right? And so that means transformative justice. That means restorative justice. That means it means nothing comes in front of my goal. Personalities don't matter, right? None of that matters to me. What matters is my question to everyone I talk to now, are you trying to get free? Because I'm trying to get free. Right? I'm not trying to get rich. I'm not trying to get money. I'm not trying to get likes on Facebook. I'm trying to get free. And so if you're not trying to get free, then I'm moving along. I'm not gonna throw, I'm not gonna throw roadblocks in your way, but my path is freedom. My path is liberation. And so I don't even know what your question was now, but your question was what did I learn? What did I learn in
Yeah.
that space?
Yeah.
The movement can
You,
what I learned is we've been here in this space sort of before, right? And so thinking about things that the Black Panthers taught us, that stuff was still relevant in 2020, right? Again,
yeah.
like I said, thinking about like we know the demise of the Panthers. One of they have a 5-point thing that talked about the demise of the Panthers. One of those things was personalities over projects, right? When we were in that square, for hundreds of days, I can't tell you how many conflicts we had to mediate and mitigate, right? Because people
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about personalities as opposed to what is the goal here, right? And so I think that we need to get very clear on what our goal is and move that way. And that, again, is not something that's new to this movement. That's been across the board in our history, period. I think that I learned, and we learned that um, I thought we were winning because I think that capitalism is dying and white supremacy is dying. And I say that because when something is dying, it fights harder and harder to live,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I feel like the things that we experienced through the last president's administration, and even going into this one, and then going into the uprisings, we're seeing that struggle, that fight, that fight to live, that fight to survive, right? And so I believed I believed that we were winning. And so how do we then take that same energy and continue on to go ahead and to continue to win? I learned that when young people are ready to burn it down, you let them burn it down. You have to stop getting in the way of young people. Let them do what they do. Support them the best you can. Let them do what they do. I learned that we are definitely stronger together. Collective liberation is the most important. We don't have time to play oppression poker these days because everybody's on the chopping block, right? Um, yesterday it was Black people overall. Then the next day it was trans people. Now today it is women, right? And so everybody can get it in this system. And so
Everybody can get it.
everybody can get it, right?
Yeah.
So we have to figure out what our common goal is and work towards that, because ain't nobody safe.
Yeah.
White women ain't safe. Poor white men aren't safe. Black
Yeah.
people aren't safe. LGBTQ people aren't safe. Children aren't safe. Our elderly aren't safe.
Yeah.
So we got to figure it out, because so that's what I learned. We got to figure collective liberation is the goal, and figuring out how to move towards that is most important.
Word. All right. So one of the things that you talked about coming out of that process was political education. So are you guys still doing? Well, first off, tell us a little bit about how that evolved, and are you still doing it? And kind of what was the thought process behind it, or what is the thought process behind it now, and what kind of impact do you think it had?
Yeah. So the reason we did so again, I live in New Orleans, and I tell people the story all the time. I packed when the uprisings began in Louisville. Um, my kids were like, "We're going home, right?" And I was like, "No, Louisville got it. Like, I'm not, Louisville got it. They can take care of this." And my kids were like, "You need to be there. You need to go home." And so we packed our bags for 3 days and stayed for 30. The day that we were
Mm,
supposed to leave, um, Louisville Metro Police Department killed somebody else. So we stayed.
right.
But I knew I couldn't stay forever, right? I knew that my house was in New Orleans. I knew that we were in the middle of a pandemic. I knew that I needed to come home and do my job, and whatever that looked like in the pandemic. And so I tried to figure out what I could do from New Orleans to support organizers on the ground long term, or even short term for that matter. And so we also in that same moment had hundreds of new people like that I'd never seen before, right? Like that
Hmm.
kids and white allies and whatever, who had never been out to a protest or never been out to an uprising, never been part of this kind of action before, but knew that the time was now, right?
Hmm.
So a friend of mine who could not be out in the streets, and myself, who was supposed to be going home at some point, decided to do this political education is our contribution to that time and space. And so very early on, that first month and a half, 2 months, we were doing classes every day on basic stuff. What is like basic protesting information? Like, don't wear flip flops, don't do this, cover your mouth, wear a all those kind of things. We talked about we talked about defund the police. What does that mean? And what does that look like? And we talked about food stuff, self-care. Like, we had classes 3 days a week in the park which was our home base. And then we also had 2 virtual sessions for folks who wanted to learn or who wanted to engage, but again, also couldn't be in the streets. And so we did that for like 2 months until the park was no longer conducive to have those classes, because we were literally having our defund the police conversation while the cops were on their bullshit, right? Like, we were literally in class one day in the park, and the cops ran through with their guns drawn and harassing people, right?
Dang.
And so they were like, perfect visual for this class right now. So we ended up eventually just going completely online in September. In September, we were doing classes on conflict resolution. We just everything, anything. One of the biggest pieces was, it wasn't me and my co-facilitator or my co-coordinator who was doing the classes. We were bringing people who already had the expertise to the table to run those classes, right? So if you were doing food justice work, come and do a session on food justice. If you were doing organizing with youth, come do a session on organizing youth, right? It wasn't us trying to bestow knowledge upon you. It was bringing folks who were already doing the work to share with folks who wanted to engage in the work. Yeah. And so that's been almost 2 years now, and yes, it's still going on. I would love, and so as we were beginning to evolve toward, so now we do, not only do we do classes, we also do reading groups. We call it Revolutionary Reading Group, where we read a book and have like a book club once a month or whatever, or every week actually. We were trying to, and everything is free, right? So we were trying to find books that you could either access online or that we could pay for and send to you, because ultimately our goal is to decolonize education, right? We would love to get it to where we have college professors coming on to our platform and delivering their classes to the masses of people who don't have access to college, right? Or, so we've had like Dr. Hollowell from Spalding University comes on every few months and does a Black History or, a Black History session, or 4 or 5 sessions, right? And so giving people access to information they wouldn't have access to otherwise is really our goal, is to, like I said, decolonize education.
Wow.
Because education should be, because it's a human right.
It's a human right. So bringing us full circle.
Bringing it back, right?
Bringing it back. All right. So I have a bit of a cold. Bear with me. When I met you, you were not a DJ, and now you are. I know you're a DJ. Whatever, you're a DJ. So what role does culture play in your life, like personally? Do you think it plays in the work? And how do you think that the movement can use it more effectively?
Culture, for me personally, music is everything to me. If I'm having a good day, I'm playing music. If I'm having a bad day, I'm playing music. If I'm cleaning my house, I'm playing music. If I'm working, I'm playing music. So music is everything to me. I don't think that I understood culture until I moved to New Orleans. Right? Culture is a bigger thing, because New Orleans is culture, right?
Yeah.
The traditions, the food, the way they gather, the way they talk, the way that they move, the way that they spit poetry, the way that they have second lines, the way that they engage with one another, all of those things, I did not really appreciate the same way that I do now. And so when I moved here, the work that I was doing, it was very important that art was part of that, and that we were honoring the culture that did exist in New Orleans as we were doing our work, because it is everything. Art, whether it's painting or rapping or singing or poetry or sculpting or whatever, it's all a part. It could be an outlet. It can be a means for you to express how you feel. It can be a way for you to celebrate. It could be a way for you to mourn, right? And without having to use those words. I'm more of a word person because that's my medium.
Yeah.
But not everybody, that's not their medium. And so culture and art give people an opportunity to express themselves through their medium, and it's important. And specifically as for Black people, that's what we do. We create, right?
Mm-hmm.
We create. And so it's extremely important, and it has to be part of the movement and part of our lives, because that's what we've always done. I mean, you see every quote unquote movement in this country where Black folks were engaged, music, art was part of that, right? Whether it was writing books, when they weren't supposed to be reading and writing, whether it was singing songs, songs is what got us free. Songs is what, people would use to pass messages when they were enslaved, things like that. And so, or to help us get through slavery, right? All of those, like, that's art and culture has always been a way that we've persevered, the way we've communicated, the way that we've celebrated, and so we have to continue to embrace that.
Wow. Powerful. All right. So, okay, here we go. So, Roe versus Wade is being threatened. I mean, the question I've written is, what do we do? But I guess really what I should have asked is, first off, how are you feeling about this, really? And then if you are inclined, what's the move? Is there a move?
How do I feel? I haven't felt this well, I haven't felt this defeated in a long time. I did have some of those feelings during the uprisings in 2020, like, what the hell are we gonna do? Um, but what I knew then is that what we were dealing with was it was a big issue, but on a smaller scale, right? So, like, when thinking about police brutality, there are tangible things that you can do locally to address those things, right? And then ultimately address as a country.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming from the top down. This is probably one of the most influential pieces of legislation that will impact our lives in our lifetime, coming from the top
Yeah,
down, right?
yeah. This is like undoing Dred Scott, or not Dred Scott, but Brown versus Board of Education. This is like undoing Brown,
Yes,
which is now on the table, or Loving,
which is
which is
not
now on the
right,
table.
right? I told
Yeah,
you everybody can get it. Like, this is what's
everybody
where
can get it.
we're
Yeah, yeah,
at, right? And so, from the top down, because here's what happens, right? States like Kentucky and Louisiana have trigger laws.
yeah.
So, which means when this is overturned, automatically Kentucky and Louisiana is back to the olden days, as my daughter calls them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Automatically. And both of those states already have legislation that's being worked on to ban abortion anyway, not even realizing we already have a trigger law. So it's going to happen regardless, right?
Yeah.
And so um my heart my heart says we continue to organize and we continue to build that grassroots base in our locality, because again, it's going back to the states, right?
Yeah.
So we build that grassroots base to then not allow that legislation to impact us on a state level. Um, but I would be lying if I didn't say I was disheartened, and I yeah, I'm at a loss, right? Because we've been, a lot of kids during the uprisings would always say to me, or not a lot of them, a few of them would say, "We're not listening to you. You say you've been out here 20 years. Why the hell we out here now?" Right? So
Yeah.
obviously what I've been doing isn't working. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I had to eat that with them. I had to be like, you know what, you're right. I'm trying to tell you what to do, but you right. And I had to eat that and sit with that. And so the things that I would say what we should do, I'm questioning because I've been doing them for 20 years and I don't see anything happening or changing. We, like I said, we set, it could be argued that the Breonna Taylor protest was the longest protest in American history now, right? Because
Yeah.
we were out there in the streets for 300 plus days, past the longest recorded protest was the Montgomery bus boycott, and we passed that up, right? And so, but Breonna's murderers are walking free right now, right? We passed a law in Kentucky on banning no-knock warrants that is minimal to addressing the issue at best. We had a cop in Louisville kill a mentally ill man 2 months ago while I'm working on building a program that is supposed to stop that from happening. Like literally he got killed on Friday and our thing was supposed to start on Monday. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to remain hopeful given where we are right now. And so I have to be honest and say that. Like it's hard for me to remain hopeful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I may have been sticking to questions, but I gotta comment on this one. It's there are probably some people who would say that, and you referenced this earlier. This is the last gasp of white supremacy, right? The final fight of capitalism, and I don't think we could underestimate the extent to which they're willing to take the whole ship down with them, right? And the chaos that they're willing
Revolutions
to.
happen both ways, right?
Right. I think that's part of where objectively, it's funny because I think about kind of how we view progress, right? And like the whole notion of representation, which is important, right? I don't think we should. What is the depth of the implication of the fact that a month ago the big news was a black woman Supreme Court justice, and their response to that is, all right, we'll just take Roe versus Wade, right? And the extent to which that I think, and again, I think you talked about this earlier, right? Representation in a system designed to destroy you is only going to take you so far, right? It's only because ultimately, and I think this is a part of what they want to keep reflecting back to us. This ain't yours. It's not yours. It wasn't created for you, and you don't get to have it.
Yeah.
But I know we're running towards the end, so I don't want to. This isn't my interview. But this does bring me to the next question. So do you think that there is hope for America? Like seriously, is there hope for this country? And if so, what's it gonna take?
In its current state, there's no hope for this country. This country needs to be, like I said, I regret every day that I didn't let them kids burn that city down. I regret it every day. Like I feel like, you asked me early on, am I revolutionary? But I feel like the only answer is to burn it down and start over. Because everything is so it's like it's like cancer, right? Like it just gets into everything, right? So even during the protest, right, when we were out there in the streets chanting and clashing with police, people were only worried about their cash apps, right? People were only worried about if their album was going to drop or people were going to like their video on Facebook, right?
You know what it reminds me of, not to interrupt, but you ever seen Boondocks? You know the show The Boondocks?
Mm-hmm.
You know the episode where MLK comes back?
Yeah. Yes.
He was like,
No, that's
and now
exactly.
I want to talk about soul playing. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? That's, yeah, but go ahead.
And that's exactly what it is, right? So everything is so like it's into everything, right? It's like, oh, I can't come out and protest because I have to go to work. And that's a real thing, right? I can't knock you for that because you have to eat,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
we haven't won yet. We haven't won yet. So
yeah, right.
yeah,
And so it's like, will you jeopardize your comfort? Because everybody just wants to be comfortable, right?
yeah.
Will you jeopardize your comfort for change? Or will you
Mhm.
jeopardize? I mean, because shit, I jeopardize. I lost my job. I am flat fucking broke from, help like doing mutual aid stuff and traveling back and forth. Like, I, everything, everything.
Yeah,
Relationships, the trauma that I endured. And now I'm sitting here wondering, was it worth it? Because we're in the same boat that we were 2 years ago. We're in the same boat. The uprisings in Louisville started May 28th of 2020. I am in the same boat on May 4th, as I was on May 4th, 2020.
mm,
So what has changed? And I've lost so much, and is it worth it? And people aren't willing to make that sacrifice, especially if they don't see any return. And
yeah,
so I don't think that there's any hope as we know it because people are still tied to this idea of capitalism and white supremacy, and people are volleying for white attention and white proximity, and that's success to them. So I
yeah.
don't think there's hope as it is. So it has to go away to understand that things can be better or different.
Word, word. Um. All right. What are the three things you would like to see happen in the movement over like the next 10 years? Let's just assume it could happen. Assuming it could happen.
That people have a collective goal and are working towards that as opposed to working against each other. That people can identify, this is the goal. And I may not agree with your method to get to that goal, but we know the goal is the same, right?
Okay.
And that I may not like, how you move or how you talk or your personality, period. But I know that your goal is the same as my goal. So we're working together. That's the biggest thing for me. I think that people have different goals and not honest about their goals. And they then end up doing other things. Like I said, people are so entrenched in this system that that's their goal is to be successful under this system, as opposed to being free, period. Right. So just um people being very upfront about their goals and us working collectively together to get there. Um and that's that we're building and we're building political power, not even political power, that we're building power, right? That we learn and understand our power and then use that to continue to work towards our goals. um we have so many people out here who doesn't understand how this system is working and how it impacts them. We have so many people out here that think it's not their problem until their kid is killed by police. We have people out here who are like, well, I got mine, so why can't you get yours? Um, and don't understand how the systems in place made it so much harder than it had to be. And then my ultimate goal is that we truly learn how to take care of ourselves and each other, in a way that's sustainable to continue to do the work.
Love
So I think
those.
that's the three things I want to see.
All right. And here's the final question. When I wrote this question, I realized there's an implication in the question. Uh, so I'll just say it out loud. The question is, how important do you think our next election will be? And of course, I'm asking this as a person who ran for office. But I mean, I guess kind of additionally, like tactically and strategically speaking, where do elections fit in all of this right now?
I mean, I think you just said it a minute ago, right? You said that representation doesn't matter because it's not our system, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's, and if you had asked me this question 2 months ago, I would have thought differently, right? I'm
Yeah.
a religious voter. I'm every primary, I actually pulled up my voter file on Van and saw where I missed a primary one time. And I was like, oh my God, how did I miss that primary? What was I doing? Why was I not, that's the kind of person I was, right?
Yeah.
I have several friends running for office right now, and I'm watching the quote unquote politics and how they're unfolding. And again, over this last week or two, I feel like none of this shit matters. Because I'm
curious.
watching.
Have you talked to them about? I mean, just especially coming out, any of those people running for office. Have you talked to them about this and how this is affecting them at all? I don't want to put anybody on blast or nothing, but I'm just
How
curious.
what's affecting how I feel it's affecting them, or how Roe
No,
versus Wade, like what?
yeah, Roe versus Wade. I mean,
I
because
haven't talked to them personally.
yeah, because I can only imagine, you're in the middle of running for office and then this hits, and I mean, you're not, regardless, you're not going to feel the same, right? You're either going to be like way more fired up, or you're going to be like, why the fuck am I doing this? You know what I mean? But
Yeah, and I haven't talked to them because I've been like the last couple days, I've kind of been just in my hole because it's too much. It's too
yeah,
much. And so I haven't reached out to them to say, how does this make you feel? But I think that this, on top of other things that have happened in the political arena this past week with some of them, that they're not, I could be wrong. I'm projecting. They're probably not in the best spaces either.
yeah. All right. Well, any last thoughts, words, things to share with the audience, things you want people to know, shout outs, you know what I mean?
I guess I don't let my pessimism right now, determine or dictate your steps.
Yeah,
I hope this is a phase for me and that I'll be out of it in a couple days and that
yeah,
I can reignite that fire in myself. But um, yeah, I usually have some good parting words and some good, fired up things to say. But I just want to say that we need to take care of ourselves and take care of each other because
yeah.
we have a long, long road ahead of us.
And I mean, on the real, sometimes you have to accept defeat to understand how to win. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm,
We can't keep you can't rea- reality will always impose itself one way or the other. And so
yeah,
a lot of this is just the struggle to understand, accept, and engage reality as it is. And I think part of what's difficult in this situation is there's so many layers, right? There's so many layers, and you have to get through so much to even get to the point of understanding what reality is. So,
right, right.
as weird as it may sound, I embrace your pessimism. As your friend, I'm pretty certain it's a phase because you can never stay out of the game for too long. So all it takes is one phone call.
Yeah,
All it takes is
but Mark, I'm tired though. Like I'm
yeah, I feel
exhausted.
that. Yeah,
I'm exhausted.
yeah,
Fighting systems, then fighting who I thought were our allies, and then fighting, you know, my own mental health and helping other folks fight their mental health and responding to their traumatic experiences. Like I am absolutely exhausted.
yeah.
Exhausted.
Well, Khalilah, get some rest, and like you said, take care of yourself. Please take care. Thank you very much for your time. This was an excellent interview that I will be sharing with many, many people. And yeah, have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
Even if it's a little bubble, have a good day. All right, y'all.
I'll do my best.
We're out.